My name is Rick Moore, and I'm the publisher of Whitecap Publications. I'm interviewing Eric Neher, an author with us, and he's the author of this book, the new book, Natives of the Night. And you ready for the interview, Eric?
I'm ready.
All right, let's start. Right. Can you tell us a bit about your book and what inspired you to write it?
Well, my book is it's definitely a thriller based on Native American mythology to a certain degree, and it's a very fast-paced book. So it's just really kind of a couple of ideas coming together, really.
Okay.
That I kind of acted upon or went with.
Well, what inspired you to write it?
Oh, there's a lot of growing up. I was surrounded by going to school. I was surrounded by a lot of children who had disabilities, and for me, I don't know. It was just kind of a shocking thing to think that someone would be like this for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And so the inspiration really was, well, what if if there was a way for them to come, to break away from that, whatever was ailing them, and not just break away, but actually become even more powerful than, say, you or I normally. So that's kind of where I went with that.
Okay. Now, what was the most challenging aspect of the writing and publishing process for you?
Well, as far as writing goes, it's just actually doing it. It's easy to turn on the television and say, I'll type later.
Yep. I've had that experience. Yep.
So that's really the most challenging thing as far as the writing goes. So you just have to do it.
But was there a certain obstacles you had to overcome to writing, like writer's block?
Not so much with this one. I kind of knew what I wanted to do, and I kind of knew where I wanted to go with it.
Okay.
It's, I guess, as you would call a pantser. I do put someone in a situation and go with it. But in this particular story, I kind of had an idea where I wanted it to go and what I wanted to happen at the end. Wow. But I didn't write anything down because things might change in the future, as you go along.
Well, honestly, you had the idea fully formed in your mind before you wrote it, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
That's
I had the main I don't know, I guess would you call it the keystones? I don't know. I had the main parts. I knew what I wanted to happen. I just had to kind of fill. Yeah, the main plot points. I just had to fill in between.
Okay.
And it actually worked out pretty well.
All right. How long did it take you to, well, let me ask you another question first. Did you have a particular writing routine or ritual while working on your book?
Well, I usually try to write in the mornings. I only spend maybe 2 or 3 hours a day probably writing.
Right.
I try to get that in, if you're having to work or whatever, nothing's going to be set in stone, but I did try to get 2 to 3 hours in a day. Okay. And it's really a lot easier when you kind of know where you're going.
Right. Well, let's see, there's no routine or ritual except to write in the morning, right? Is what you're saying.
I didn't sacrifice a chicken or anything, if that's what you mean.
No, that's not what I mean, but honestly.
But if it works.
Yeah, if it works, why not? How long did it take you to write your book from start to finish? And what kept you motivated throughout? Was there any time during the writing of it that you hesitated a little bit? You didn't know where you're going?
I would say on this one, no. I was pretty, what kept me motivated was I really liked this story, and I liked the characters.
Good.
And
that shows, by the way, it really does.
Well, I appreciate it. So I like the characters. Had to kill a few off, but that's life. And but I kind of knew where this was going, So on this particular story, that was pretty much my inspiration. Is I just wanted to get it down so I could, you know, see for myself where it's going.
A lot of authors have a problem with killing off their main characters.
I do not.
Yeah, you do not. All right. What advice would you give to aspiring authors who are just starting their writing journey? Because they get this question a lot, all the time.
Well, this is what I learned and kind of what I was told. Uh, as far as advice, as far as like, are you talking about process? Are we talking about getting published?
Virtually anything.
Well, process wise, you just got to stay at it, and you have to read, and it does not hurt. I mean, you can go online and you can find videos all about how to write from actually really good authors for free.
Yep.
So just do it and read. I mean, you got to be able to. You have to read.
I
because
think
reading is really reading. It is because look, writing is a kind of a rhythmic style anyway. The more you read, the more you realize it. If you read a lot, you're going to find like authors, you're going to say, well, I don't really like that. Well, that's probably because you don't like how it's, they're laying it out. It may not be what you were used to, or what you want to do. But you need to write every day, even if it's just in a journal or,
Yep.
And as far as publishing goes, man, the best advice I ever got was, start with short stories, start sending them off, try to get 10, 15 short stories published. It almost acts like a resume.
Yes, it does. It does.
When you can come to the table saying, I've had 10, 15 short stories published.
People pay attention. Publishers pay attention to that.
Right. It shows, it kind of shows that you've been doing it for a while and you kind of know what you're doing. Okay. And you're used to rejection because you will get rejected. That is no joke.
That is true. That is true.
I had a story rejected like 8 times before, but it was the same story. I didn't make any changes, and it finally did get picked up by someone.
Wow. I remember going through that when I was a young author, and it's really true. It's really, really good advice, actually.
It's all about resilience. I mean, if you really, really want to be a writer, a published writer, you have to write. You have to send them off, and you have to get used to rejection because it is coming.
Yeah, it is. It is. Now, what characters in your book were the most interesting to you?
I kind of like I mean, I don't want to get way into it and give stuff away, but the protagonist was cool. I mean, he's kind of a coward who got thrown into a situation that he really didn't want to be in the first place. And, within this short period of time, his entire life changed from what he thought he was going to do to what he ends up doing changes.
Right.
I thought that was pretty interesting. I like that.
What about his friend, his sidekick? Did you find him?
Devin Craig?
Yep.
He's a very interesting character too. I mean,
he's kind of a complex character.
Very complex, and he is definitely going through a character arc of his own.
Yep.
At one point, I think it alludes that he could be possibly the main antagonist there for a little bit. Very feasible for him. I mean, emotionally, what he's gone through, it was very easy to believe that this could be the one.
Right.
So, he's a very interesting character, and I think he lives. I can't remember. Just kidding.
You know, one character that I admire the most, but she's a complex character. I won't give anything away, but I thought Linda was a complex character.
Very much so.
Very rich in detail, very, very rich in her involvement, and you got this sense of surprise with her.
Yes.
That you don't have too often. Right?
Yes.
She's genuinely surprising character in the book.
Yeah, she's a very, very good character.
And that's one of the reasons I took to your book was Linda, because she was a surprising character and she was something you couldn't have seen coming
Right.
in a million years. You wouldn't have
Right.
seen it coming.
What she really was and what she was
Yep.
capable of doing.
Yep. And that
Yeah.
was really great. Now, are there any characters, scenes, or themes in your book that hold special significance for you? And if so, why?
Well, I would say Linda's one of them, just because I went to school with a girl who was just like that,
Yep.
and it was very sad to me. Um, I know we haven't really touched on the medicine wheel or the sacred wheel or what do you want, whatever we call it.
We can
But I
touch
think that
like,
I think that that in itself is a very interesting concept because
yep.
I mean the Wyoming wheel, which is a real wheel, was started so far back they don't even know who started it. So some of these things have been sitting around on this ground
Oh,
for
yeah.
hundreds of years, and we don't even know.
Maybe
So I
thousands.
always thought that the mysterious aspect of that actual
Wait a minute. The
uh,
Wyoming wheel could have been started maybe 1,000 years ago.
yeah, it's really a weird deal. And well, I don't know if you remember, like in the book, I also made reference to Clovis culture,
Yep.
which is actually a real deal too.
Yeah.
That is real. Those they think those I think what was it 10,000 years ago or something, but they found it in Clovis, New Mexico,
Well,
I
honestly,
believe.
most stories that interweave Indian lore, Native
Right,
American lore, are
right.
kind of weak, but yours was very fascinating. It's
Well,
true. The way you interwove it in the story was natural and surprising at the same time.
I did a lot of research on that, man.
Yep.
So,
I found it
uh,
riveting.
well, yeah. I mean, it's a very it when it gets moving. I mean, it is one story that is cooking.
Like,
No doubt about it. Uh, but yeah, so I love the medicine wheel. I love the idea of a medicine wheel. I love what it represents. And
tell the audience
yeah,
what the medicine wheel is. I mean,
well,
not go into too
the
much detail, but what it physically is.
and this story, yeah, medicine wheel is generally a circle made of rocks, and they spoke into a center, and each one of these sections of this wheel represents it can represent the seasons. There could be four representing a season. It's different.
Right?
uh so that basically, now my medicine wheel itself started out that way, but something went very wrong uh a few hundred years ago, and it was infected.
What was the
So
intent of the medicine wheel originally?
what was what?
What was the intent of the medicine wheel?
Well, in my story, the medicine wheel what was originally intended to help people.
Okay.
It was a good thing. It is where it is where these children we're talking about can go, and it allows them to function in a normal capacity.
And then it
They can stand up from their chairs. They can throw away the walkers or whatever they're on, and they're not only just normal, but they're a little more than normal. They can do a lot of things.
now don't reveal how it got infected, but
Okay,
say that it got infected,
it was infected
and that was the
through
basic
it.
story, right?
Well, here, let's just sum it up this way. It was infected by a murder many hundred years ago, and that is basically the beginning of how things go south.
Right. By the way, the beginning of the story itself is the first incident of the wheel going south, and it's compelling. It's very compelling.
When they found the body, I think you're
Yep.
talking about.
Yep.
Yeah,
When they found the body.
yeah, that, yep.
Now, is that a scene in the book that was riveting to you, had special significance for you? Because that must have been hard to write. I
Well, I've
think
never
that,
found a body in a park personally,
yep.
but
I hope
uh,
not.
you know, I like the idea because if the park body, as we'll call it, the guy wasn't a very nice guy. Uh, so that's kind of odd too.
Yes.
But as far as it like being compelling, I mean, it acted like
It's a catalyst.
quite the springboard
Yeah, it was a
to get
catalyst
going. Yeah,
right?
yeah. So absolutely,
For a really rollicking story after that. It's really fast moving. I think
it
that
is.
that set the tone for the whole book, right?
Yeah, and I do try to write with when it comes to novels. I try to, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, but I really think opening line is important. Hook line is important. The first line of that book. The first line of that book is, by the time the body was found, I was already late.
Right.
That so starts like that. Yeah,
Well,
the
we
other
didn't talk,
novel,
well, we didn't talk about that before, but let's talk about it now. The opening line of a novel is very important, right?
absolutely
Sets the tone for the whole novel, and it spins.
right,
In your case, it starts the whole wheel of motion events.
right. I was going to say the opening line of my other novel uh, is you know being a killer at 14. The only problem with being a killer at 14 is mobility. That's my first line. I
Right.
mean, just like something that catches you.
Now, what was the name of that book, by the way?
That was called The Killing Pledge.
Who published it?
Kayella.
Kale. Okay.
Yeah,
That's a great story, too.
yeah, I
And
appreciate
by
that.
the way, I'd like to promote that today if I could. What's the title of it?
The Killing Pledge.
Killing Pledge by Kale Publishing House. And
Right.
it's really a fascinating read. It
Well,
really is.
yeah, it's another. It's kind of it's I try to. It's another one that when it starts going and it's just going.
Right.
So
It's an example of the first line being very, very important to kick the thing off.
that's your hook. Yep.
Yep.
And another good thing to do is, and if you can't always do it, and sometimes you shouldn't, but if you're really going at a fast pace, you kind of want to leave chapters on a cliffhanger,
Right.
And then
You can't always do it,
you can't always do, and sometimes you shouldn't. You shouldn't.
but it's really, truly advisable to consider
Yeah.
each chapter,
Right.
whether it
Right.
should leave
Well,
it.
if you have a chapter with a lot going on, you probably should leave it at a cliffhanger. If it's not one that's going in deep about somebody or something,
Right. Is there another scene in there that in your book that let's see, that sets it apart in your mind? So about halfway mark to the book?
Sets it apart.
Yeah.
Uh,
The way the opening line does sets it apart.
mhm.
And midpoint. I was curious if there was another scene in there that stuck out.
Well, yes, there is, and again, I don't want to give anything away.
Right?
The monster at the school.
Right.
That's a pivotal scene.
Just too much away. I was just kidding. I was kidding you. You just gave it too much away.
Well, no. Why are you asking me these questions? No.
Read the book to understand.
They would have to read the book, but yeah, if anybody who is if you read that, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about when you get to that scene, because that is a revelation.
It is. It's truly revelatory.
Yeah, it's an absolute revelation.
Yes. Now, what are your plans for promoting your book and connecting with readers? Aside from what the publisher is going to do, what are you going to do?
I plan on getting arrested.
Okay, that sets you apart.
I mean, that's seems to be the thing. You know what? I've got a lot of readers. I'm gonna promote it, through the various online, Facebook, Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter. You know, Basically whatever it takes. I send it out to my mailers, my
By the way,
mailing list.
it's not giving anything away to say that I'm going to promote it for a Bram Stoker Award. And that's how much I believe in this book. I really, truly believe this book is excellent.
Well, you're a sweet, sweet man.
Yes, I am, by God. All right. Are you
Excellent.
currently working on any new projects or have any plans for future books?
Yes. This is actually book one of The Wheel of Shadow.
Okay.
So I am currently starting the second book,
What was the first book's name again?
Natives of the Night.
All right, that's a good plug. But the second book is going to be called what? Do you have a title
Oh,
yet?
you know what? I'm toying with, I'm kind of thinking Natives of the Something. That's about where I'm at.
All right.
I actually do have a couple of ideas, but nothing I'm really gonna put out there yet because I really don't like to absolutely title something until it's done.
Right. I
Uh,
understand. I understand.
the one that I'm thinking of is Natives of the Catch right now, and there's a reason for that, and it'll become very clear.
Okay.
And as of right now, I'm leaning towards Natives of the Catch,
Okay.
as in they've been caught,
All
kind of
right.
thing.
All right.
So,
Now,
but
the
that's where it's
publishing date for this book is going to be Tuesday next week.
yes.
Buy it anytime during that time. You can buy it at Amazon or Barnes and Noble, any place you buy books, right? So, Natives of the Night, it's part of the Wheel of Shadows series, which has 3 volumes. And author is Eric Neher, Neher. And Eric, it's been a pleasure interviewing you. And we could do it again next Tuesday, right?
Sounds good. I appreciate it.
For the release date. All right. I'll see you then, Eric.
All
Bye-bye.
right.
Bye.
Bye.